Welcome to another beautiful day here on the Algarve, and to this, our Day Skipper instructional video. This video is going to give you a taster of what the Day Skipper course is all about. This course is geared to give you confidence to handle something like this. This is our boat, the Osprey, 41-foot cruiser. Let's go and have a look on board. Let's have a look at the course in a bit more detail. On board the yacht, we're going to teach you all about your navigation, your chart work, rule of the road, boat handling. All the things you're going to need so that when you step up to the mark and you're behind the wheel on one of these, not only do you understand how it all works, but you feel confident in doing it. Let's take a look on board. One of the key things you'll notice when you become a day skipper is that dreaded word, responsibility. You're going to be responsible not only for 41 foot of yacht, but for the safety of your crew and of course yourself. With responsibility, you need to be aware of how the system on a boat works. A boat is one of the last places, thankfully, not run by a committee. On board here, skipper's king. But the king needs a good crew, and the interface between the skipper and the crew is paramount to a boat working properly. The crew need to be supplying lots of information back to the skipper. The skipper, in return, needs to be giving them lots of information and telling them what's going on. The old adage is true, that a good skipper appears to be a lazy skipper. Well, not really lazy, but delegating various jobs about the boat to the crew so that they get to enjoy it and they're part and parcel of things. A good skipper appears to be a lazy skipper. As a day skipper, you're going to be responsible for the safety of the boat and for the crew. You need to be sure that you delegate the duties, the jobs around the boat so that everybody becomes involved in the running of the boat. Don't forget, the Day Skipper ticket is your driving licence for one of these that you can charter a boat anywhere in the world. As skipper, your main responsibility will be to look after the pilotage of the boat into a new port. Your position when you do that is here in the cockpit of the boat. It's not down below at the chart table where so many people tend to think it is. Here in the cockpit. Here you're in control of the boat and everything that goes on around you. So pre-planning, really, really important. As skipper, you want to make sure that one of your daily checks that you do on your yacht is to make sure that your engine is all up to spec. Back in the Competent Crew video, we detailed the wobbles that you need to run through, that little checklist that you have of WOBBLES. So that was water, that was oil, that was belt, that was battery, that was leaks, electrics, sieve. You need to make sure that everything is working nice and sweetly on the engine. In addition to that, we now need to take you through an additional checks that you need to run through as skipper by way of fuel and making sure that the engine does run itself. So first thing, let's get the engine compartment open. Up she goes. Make sure everybody on the boat is aware that the companionway is out of action. And by way of access, I've just opened up the side hatches and indeed taking off the lower step as well. W, that's water. She's water cooled, and in here we've got the radiator. Check we've got water in the radiator. Under the cap, stick your digit in, a little bit of water, that's fine. Second thing we're going to do, O for oil. Going to check our oil. Well, we need our kitchen roll for that, and our dipstick on the engine, off to the side. Here she be. Here we are. Take her out nice and black. Engine oil is always black. Pop it in. Make sure you've parked the boat on a nice level surface. And out she comes. Perfect. Just underneath the top mark. That's fine. That's our oil. B for belt. That's the alternator belt. There we go. This belt that runs round here. Go to a midpoint on the belt. Should be nice and firm, but not too firm. Give it a twist. You should get about a quarter turn on that. That's lovely. Inspect it for any crazing, any fraying, anything like that that might indicate it's about to part company with itself. That's a nice new belt. That's fine. Battery. Check the battery next. The engine's got its own battery, specifically for starting the engine. Make sure the terminals are nice and fast, and indeed she's all strapped in. And on a regular basis, we'd be checking the cells on the battery as well. That's all nice. L for leaks. Make sure that the engine well is nice and clean. The old kitchen roll comes in handy again here. She'll be able to eat your dinner off the bottom of the well of the engine, because any leaks that might develop, which would indicate a problem's on its way, that will be leaking into the well. That's all nice and dry down there. She's happy. E for electrics. Quick look over your electrics. Make sure nothing's vibrating loose or chafing, that sort of thing. All looks nice and good in there. Finally, we have S for strainer. Here's our strainer. It's this device that filters the seawater that the engine draws in to cool the system. Comes through this device here. There's a strainer inside that, so if any foreign matter or anything gets drawn up from outside, it stays in the filter and we can get rid of it. So anything like Harry Haddock, a plastic bag, anything nasty like that, we can always get that out and improve the water flow to the engine. Our strainer. Bleeding the fuel system. If you get air in the fuel system, we need to get that air out before the engine's going to work again. To do this manually, we have a lift pump on the side of the engine, which will manually pump the fuel through, and we release the vent screw on top of the fuel filter here. To do that, get my spanner, located on there, open that up, slacken her off, piece of rag, wrap that round the fuel filter because we don't want to spill any diesel into the engine. And then on the side of the pump, we've got the lift pump, the manual lift pump here. We can pump the fuel through from the fuel tank, gets all the air out the system, bubbles at the top of the vent screw. When it stops bubbling out and we're just getting fuel out, we nip that up nice and tight. Job done, crank the engine, she should fire. There we go, there's our daily checks done for our engine. Time to close up the compartment now and do our checks up top. Nice and gently, mind your fingers. Let's go up top. We've done our checks down below. Now it's time to check that the engine actually runs. There's our ignition key. Pop the key into the little slot. There's our throttle. Up and down on this boat is neutral. Let's give her just a few revs. Push the little clutch button in. Just give her a few revs. Make sure everything's sweet there. And then, just like the car, crank her over. If it's cold, you'll need to use preheat. Up she goes. Just give her a few revs to get the alternator charging. Now the first thing you're going to do is check that the cooling water is coming out of the exhaust, because if it's not, the engine's going to overheat. Cooling water, we can hear it, so let's see it as well. Loads of water pouring out there, just the job. Engine running fine. We now need to make sure that she works under load. So with the boat nicely secured up, as is always the case when we're tied alongside, give her a little kick ahead on the engine. Play the wheel to the middle, give her a few little revs. If you look out to the back, you'll see prop wash coming out there. That's the effects of the propeller underneath spinning, churning the water out, flowing out past the rudder. She's working good. Into neutral. Then just a little touch of stern. Away she goes. Back to neutral. Engine's fine. She works under load. We can now shut her down, and on this one we've got a little fuel starvation lever there. Pull that one out. Engine's fine. When the skipper says it's time to go, she's all ready to run. As you will have learnt on your competent crew course, we've got firefighting equipment throughout the boat. Here are just two of our fire extinguishers. When you do your briefing as skipper, just make sure your crew know exactly where all the firefighting appliances on board are and how they work. One of the emergency situations you may find yourself as a skipper having to deal with is a man overboard situation. Very serious, it's a mayday situation. The first thing you're going to do is stop the boat. You stop the boat. Second thing you're going to do is send away the gear to mark the spot where the casualty went over the side. Mike, send away the gear.
Right, you are, Skip.
3 things all done in that first second of someone falling over the side. You as skipper, it's your job to make sure it gets done. You're going to stop the boat, send away the gear, hit the distress button. You're then going to get the engine on. We'll teach you the fast stop method of going back to pick up your casualty. You're going to furl away the jib. You're then going to sail downwind by at least 4 boat lengths, turn round, come back and pick your casualty up. It's a very practical demonstration, and we'll teach you that out on the sea. Taking the boat off the berth. This is where, as skipper, we've got to work with our crew to make sure we get the boat nice and sweetly away from the berth. Prior to all this, we want to make sure the boat is all ready to put to sea. That means making sure everything down below is all nicely stored, all tucked away, because she's going to move around a little bit, so tuck it all away. let's make sure all the hatches are fully closed. Make sure she's watertight, ready to put to sea. Once that's done, we'll talk to our crew and have a little word how we're going to get the boat off the berth. Well, as a skipper, you need to decide how you're going to do that safely. The tide's always king on this. Use the tide to your advantage, be aware of it. The wind, that's going to influence and blow the boat a little bit as well. Use all of those to your advantage if you can. Okay, let's have a little look, see how we're going to do this. Let's get our crew into action. One of the main things we have to do is to make sure the boat's watertight. We need to close those hatches. Can we batten down the hatches, please? We've battened down the hatches, we've stowed everything down below so that nothing's going to roll around when the boat starts to tip in a seaway. We've done our engine checks. Next thing we're going to do, let's set our mooring warps to slip.